The Motorcar Workshop.
Vivify Studio Stories.
The Motorcar Workshop is a story that unveils the criminal activities of land mafia, how the land grabbers take over the lands of original owner by unfair means. This story revolves around a motorcar mechanic named Aslam. Aslam was a very honest and hardworking mechanic. Even though Aslam was not from a very well-off family. But Aslam was always honest and passionate about the work he did. Not being from a very wealthy family by birth, due to which Aslam had to drop out from his senior high school, he spent most of his early youth working for different people to make ends meet. The only thing Aslam was expert was that motor car repairing. People appreciated Aslam for his skills, and it was known that whatever car Aslam fixed never ended up in any accident. Aslam was passionate about cars and spent most of his time studying and fixing different models of cars. Aslam worked for a small rented motor car engineering workshop that was located on Queen's Road, Lahore. It was a very famous and old motor car workshop that existed since the time of partition. Since Aslam's boss was a greedy and dishonest person, there were days when Aslam didn't get any salary, and Aslam had to spend the whole month without money. But Aslam never complained and kept on working like a humble employee. Aslam's boss was Sagal, and Sagal had a rented motor car workshop. Every month Sagal's landlord would come to him and demand him of the monthly rent, but every time Sagal would refuse to pay his landlord rent. Sagal begged his landlord for time extension and to lower his monthly rent, but Sagal's adamant landlord would refuse to lower his rent. Due to not paying rent on time, Sagal's debts piled up. Seeing all of this, Aslam felt empathetic towards his boss, Sagal. But Aslam was handicapped himself. Aslam had not been paid by his boss for the last year, and all of his salaries were pending. Whenever Aslam asked Sagal for his salary, Aslam returned home empty-handed. Aslam's boss Sagal was drowning in debts and loans. Every month the landlord would send notice to Sagal to evacuate his property, but Sagal paid no heed to the landlord's legal notices and kept on running his business. Sagal was greedy, manipulative and ill-tempered. Instead of paying his debts and pending rent, Sagal started running his own personal business through which he earned well. Sagal made sure that none of his employees or his landlord would come to know of his side business. Sagal earned well, but due to his immoral character, Sagal didn't want to pay his landlord or employees money which he owed to them for so many years. Sagal had covered himself in a facade of being under stress and financial pressure for his workers. Everyone who worked for him felt sorry for Sagal, due to which many of his employees didn't demanded him salary and many worked free for him seeing his financial situation. This masked personality got Sagal a lot of profit and wealth. Sagal manipulated his fellow workers and made them believe that he is drowning in loans and debts. But the truth was that Sagal was earning well and he didn't want to share his earnings with his employees or landlord. Sagal's greed for wealth had blinded him and he used dirty tactics to increase and earn his wealth. The landlord was sick of Sagal and wanted him out of his premises. Due to Sagal's mischievous nature, the landlord had to suffer financial stress and pressure. The landlord tried different tactics to ward off Sagal off his property. The landlord hired a lawyer who would send monthly notices to Sagal to evacuate the property. But Sagal, being street smart, knew how to dodge the legal processions. One fine morning when Aslam came to the workshop, he found that the workshop was filled with raging street dogs. The dogs barked and chased everyone who came to the workshop. Later on, it was found out that the landlord had let loose dogs at the workshop to scare off all the renters and tenants. When Sagal came to know about this, he just fed dogs poisonous milk, due to which all the dogs died on the spot. Things at the workshop were getting a bit out of control, but Sagal stayed adamant on not evacuating the property. Sagal became the raving wolf who was bent upon snatching the workshop from his landlord. His greed and gluttony became like a wild horse that was unleashed. Sagal was on the way to his moral destruction. Greedy Sagal's avarice led him into grabbing the land through unfair means. Every month Sagal's mafia and the landlord would get into huge, brutal fights. Seeing all of this, Aslam and other employees would get frightened. But Aslam, being from a humble background, would not dare to participate in these disputes. Aslam would feel empathetic for the landlord, as Sagal was famous for being known as the town's biggest land mafia. One night, when all the employees and tenants had left the workshop, one unknown stranger visited the workshop on Queen's Road. Nobody knew who the stranger was as he was masked. The stranger and a few other men with him ignited a fire on the land. The workshop, as being occupied with flammable products, caught a huge fire. Everything on the workshop caught fire and the infrastructure of the workshop burned down. The fire turned into an intense and uncontrollable blaze that raged through the street for consecutive 3 days. This roaring fire caused a lot of destruction and demolition. The rescue team hurried to the site of blazing fire. The fire brigades worked for hours and hours to put out and extinguish the fire. All the surrounding buildings caught fire and many people got injured and burned due to the raging blaze. The workshop site was sealed for a week after the fire was extinguished. No one knew how the land caught fire. Out of the blue, when everything got back to normal and eased out, all the workers and the tenants of the workshop came back. But when they came back, all they found was a burned infrastructure of building. The news of the fire aired on television and social media. Police inspected the workshop area for clues. After the inspection, it was found that the fire was lit on purpose. It was not an accident. The fire accident was done on purpose and intentionally. On investigation, it was found out that a stranger, who was hired by the landlord, had ignited the fire to ward off the land mafia. The police arrested the landlord on charges of people who were injured and burnt. The workshop landowner was arrested and was jailed for 3 years in prison. Seeing all of this drama, Aslam felt bad and sympathetic for the landowner. Sagal's mischievous and malicious attitude was the root cause that the landlord was in jail now. Sagal, on hearing the news of landlord's imprisonment, laughed wickedly. For 3 years Sagal was not liable to pay rent to anyone. Sagal was boss of his own. Sagal thought of the money he could make within these 3 years when the landlord would be locked up. Aslam felt agitated of Sagal's malicious plans. One night, Aslam stayed back late as his client had given him some work to do, and to complete the work, Aslam had to do overtime at the workshop. While Aslam was working at the workshop, Aslam heard Sagal's roar of laughter. Aslam tiptoed towards Sagal's office and peeped through the window. Aslam saw Sagal talking to someone on the phone. Sagal was laughing and saying, "Did you see how I trapped the landlord? How I have trapped him and put him into jail?" Aslam was flabbergasted on hearing what Sagal was saying. It turned out that Sagal was the one who hired a stranger to lit the fire on the workshop. Sagal had paid that person plenty of rupees to burn the workshop, and the stranger lied to the police that the landlord had asked him to do the work for him, so that the land mafia would leave his premises. Aslam got furious at Sagal's unethical business mindset. Aslam recorded Sagal's telephonic conversation. Aslam had enough of Sagal's gangland and wanted to do something to stop Sagal. Aslam, after recording Sagal's telephonic conversation, went straight to the nearby police station and submitted the audio recordings to the inspector present. The inspector handed over the audios to the landlord's lawyer. The landlord lawyer challenged Sagal in the court, and Sagal was declared guilty for the fire incident. Sagal's malicious plans were destroyed only due to Aslam's heroic act. Sagal was imprisoned to jail and the landlord was cleared of all charges of the fire. Landlord hugged Aslam as it was due to Aslam that landlord was free and was not declared guilty. As for Sagal, his wealth was confiscated and he was heavily fined and sentenced to 12 years of imprisonment. On the other hand, the landlord made Aslam the new tenant of his workshop. Aslam took over Sagal's rented motorcar workshop and started running it himself. Aslam monthly paid rent to the landlord on time. Aslam business started doing great due to his sincerity and honest nature. People from all across Lahore came to him to get their motorcar fixed and repaired. Aslam worked day and night to make his business successful. Aslam's workshop and his team even invented their own racing car model. This was the first Pakistan's racing car model to be invented by Aslam's motorcar workshop. Aslam business did so well that Aslam was able to buy the workshop premises from the landlord. Hey there, beautiful bookworms. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Your likings helps this channel a lot. Have a great good night's sleep.